Well, hello, and welcome to Opal City Confidential, a Starman podcast. It's been a while, but David is back, and there was only one guest I could have because we're going to do the Starman Captain Marvel crossover, all four issues. Yay, he's showing me his pec with his Shazam lightning bolt.
Hello everyone. Nice to be
Yeah,
back. It has been a while.
it
We've,
has been a
as
while.
usual, we've been chatting about everything else for about an hour before we start recording. But
Yeah,
that's
well, that's
that's
a
how
good.
we roll.
That's some of the funnest stuff. But we're going to talk about some fun stuff too. Um, I know he's your I don't know if you've answered this. Have we done a Shazam story? No.
No, we haven't.
No, so
We've
tell,
done a couple.
yeah.
Done a
So
couple
why
on
don't
me
you
too.
quickly tell him why? Because Shazam's your guy, right?
Yeah. Well, some of the earliest superhero comics I had were a couple of issues of the '70s Shazam series because my dad had read Captain Marvel, the original Captain Marvel, and Captain Marvel Junior when he was a kid. I'm guessing they must have been the British reprints that led to to Miracle Man and all that sort of stuff, Marvel Man. And I remember really clearly having the issues with the all the ladies with the multicolored hair and color coordinated wigs and dungarees, and the issue with Captain Junior punching out Captain Nazi on the cover,
Oh, I love that.
they were obviously quite at the end of the run. So my whole life ever since then, whenever I've spotted Captain Marvel or Shazam, however you want to call him, on the cover of a comic, I've got to get them. Like, my dad's been gone for like 15 years. We weren't friends. We didn't have a really good relationship. But one of the biggest sort of lasting sort of things was we still had we had that in common. I remember him actually reading when I got issue 3 of Secret Origins in 1986. I remember actually reading that, and I was so impressed.
Hmm.
But yeah, it's kind of formative. He's one of the first superheroes that I sort of remember, and yeah, and Jerry Ordway, of course, did the Power of Shazam graphic novel in the series in the 90s, and it crossed over with Starman, which is why we're talking about him today.
Yeah, it is. And folks, the Power of Shazam is a really good superhero comic. It was. I think it's. I think everybody's brought Shazam back when they brought the Shazam title back. Has been trying to do this again.
Yeah,
And they may do it for a short spurt of time, but they never captured 4 years is in the late 90s. That's a good run for a new book.
yeah,
There's many books. Most the big titles have been running for a long time, and I don't think we have any running for a long time since the 90s, unless it's like an image book or something. Marvel and DC
yeah,
kind of restart, but this is a great
yeah.
one. So we're going to start with it goes in from Starman 39 and 40 and Shazam Power of Shazam 35 and 36. Hold on, let me pull
It
up
does, yeah.
fandom wiki so I can
According
tell you when
to
it came out.
I looked up on earlier on Mike's. According to Mike's, parts 1 and 2, Starman 39 and Shazam 35 were published on the 3rd of December 1997, my little sister's birthday.
Okay.
But I'm sure I'm sure she was down for it. I'm sure she was at home for it because it was her 18th that year. But a day or two after it was like it came out because we got them a day later in Britain. I can remember sitting reading part 1 in the cinema, waiting for Grosse Point Blank to start.
Oh my god.
And it was the second time that I'd seen Grosse Point Blank because I'd seen it when I was down visiting my friends Tony and Alice in Cambridge a couple of months earlier, and it was on again one day at the Odeon in Glasgow. So I went. I was like, I put a note up in the office. Andy wanted to come with me to see Grosse Point Blank. No one did, but I was like, fine. I went to see it, and seeing it again was amazing. And I remember reading the all the stuff with the newsreel footage before the lights went down. So yeah, it's a crack. That's my uber specific memory of this one.
Yeah, I by this time I was buying Starman as it was coming out, and I know I was buying Power of Shazam. I know I think I was because I remember reading most of it. And I'm a huge Ordway fan.
Oh, I love Jerry.
Yeah,
Yeah,
he is when he took over doing the art on All Star, I don't think I'd ever been as happy. I like Rick Buckler, especially inked by Jerry.
sure,
I mean,
sure,
Jerry and I like Rick Buckler. I don't in like the 70s and 80s, people kind of poo-pooed on him. They were just, oh, he's just a Kirby this, a Kirby that. And I said, I prefer his FF to say Keith Pollard, or you know what I mean? He's a good
sure.
solid, but he needed a good inker, and Jerry was a perfect inker for him.
Oh yeah,
And
yeah, yeah.
So, and
Jerry really suits a sort of a pure superhero story. I don't think it's any coincidence that Jeff had him drawing some of the pages on his recent Justice Society run, you know. I think that was,
yeah, if you want to see a 4-color superhero comic kind of page, you know what I mean?
yeah, yeah.
You can't beat it. It's and there's times where I've seen him draw like I'm like he drew the Avengers once or twice and it just looked odd.
Right.
He didn't. I mean, I think he also has a better feel for DC. I don't know. It was weird. I liked it. It was him, but it was like
Mm-hmm.
if you were doing this as an homage to something else, it would make more sense. But he
Sure.
did it in the Maxim Security crossover thing. I think he
Okay.
did.
All
He
right.
did.
Okay.
Yeah. And Roy was right. I think Roy wrote the issues he did. So I don't know what's going. But I like him on this, and I love his covers because folks, both covers,
Yeah, the two
the
issues.
Shazam covers. What I like about the Shazam covers, or across, it's basically the two Starmans joined in at the spot, joined to make one
Yeah,
image, and the two Power Shazams.
I'll hold the two Starman ones up for the benefit of our YouTube viewers. There we go.
Yeah. But what I like is on the Starman, the center, you have
Yeah,
you have the 40s character. Well, you have the 40s Starman on one cover and Jack on the other.
yeah,
And the Starman cover, it's just Shazam, it's just Captain Marvel.
yeah. But the kind of mirrored effect with the Nazi flag on one and the US flag on the
Yeah,
other,
that's okay. Yeah, that's how he
and you
does it.
see and Ted and Bulletman on the cover of 39, then Jack with Minuteman on the cover of issue 40. And it was cool seeing Minuteman involved in these because he's just been on an episode of the Earth-2 podcast. First
I
time we've
was
done
thinking the same
a
thing because
story
I
with him.
really, I really I loved all your JSA for April episodes. I really did. But
Thank
I
you.
I don't know how Pete finds these obscure characters to
Well,
match the
man,
shit.
he just does it. Like, thing is, there's a lot of good resources out there. Like Mike's is a brilliant resource. You can type in character names, it brings stuff up, but he does a lot of googling and checking on the fandom wikis and stuff. And the Doctor Fate one that we've just done, Minuteman meeting Doctor Fate, was because we got the reprint book into the shop, and Pete was just flicking through it and saw this one panel where Minuteman is saying blah 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 Doctor Fate, and we were just like, I was had my head in my hands, and he was telling me because we'd had a great laugh with the MF Enterprises Doctor Fate character.
Oh my
So
god, yeah, I
so
love
yeah,
that.
the GS April ones were great. Like that's it was a lot of work, obviously, and we had time to get a few guest people in, not as many as because we were doing 4 Portmanteau episodes. They were all roughly an hour and a half long. We
Oh my
kind
god.
of we got a few people in. Like we got Brandon back to do Superman. We got Steve and I did a couple together, which to eased up on Peter's time a little bit. We got Kelly to do the one Lois Lane. We got Gav and Gord to do some stuff. We would have got more people involved if we'd had a bit more time on it, I think. So that's why we did the other Fox and Crow short one
Oh, I love that one too.
afterwards, just to kind of give us a breather before we then did another hour and a half long portmanteau episode.
But
But
yeah,
yeah, see, Minuteman's really cool because he was in one of the issues of Shazam that I had as a kid. There's the cover when Cap is sort of sat on a chair and a weight is dropping down on him, and Minuteman is bursting through the door saying, "Watch out for that weight!" And the weight breaks open over Cap's head, and he says, "What weight?" So it's nice that Jerry's bringing this whole story uses a couple of the other Fawcett Comics characters.
yeah. So was Minuteman a regular because Jack Barr, the Bulletman, is kind of he's a background character in Power Shazam.
Yeah, I think Minuteman pops up a few times. It's a long time since I read it all through.
I
But I remember my memory of it is that it was brilliantly consistent, and it was excellent. Jerry's been moaned a few times. I've seen interviews with him where he sort of talked about how disappointed he was that he didn't get more support for DC. The book was winning awards and stuff, but DC weren't really doing anything to help promote it and to build on this.
Yeah.
I don't. I think they pop up. I'm not going to lie. I don't know exactly. I think they pop up a few times. I know Spy Smasher is in a couple of issues, as well, kind of a little bit earlier on than this. But but he brings in quite a few guest stars because Batman rocks up, Plastic Man turns up. There's a few, juniors there for some of the run, but then he's got and come on the a few issues that Captain Marvel Junior kind of solo starring. He got Gil Kane to draw them.
Oh
It's
yeah, I
like
remember. I think I remember
what?
that comic.
They were amazing. It was such a good series, and like maybe it was a little bit out of touch with a lot of the kind of popular sort of taste at the time. But for a fan of the old school comics, it was. I mean, I'm saying that I was 24 when these books came out. I was sort of like I wasn't like an old
I was
crusty or anything like.
34.
Yeah, I'm not the old crusty I am now. But it had a kind of classic comic sort of sensibility to it that Jerry was really faithful to. And so but yeah, I mean, it was nice seeing Minuteman pop up. Jim, I think I don't know if Bulletman's in any other ones because it kind of suits the Starman crossover because the Starman crossover obviously Ted's involved as well as Jack.
Yeah, that wonderful
Um,
flashback.
yeah, and James, as we've seen, sort of like as you've been covering Starman, James wasn't averse to having Golden Age guys turn up and be involved in some of the stories, like Wesley turning up, or some of the times past, or Rex and Alan Scott popping up every so often. So it Jerry bringing Minuteman and Bulletman into this one. It kind of fitted the ethos. It fitted into what
Yeah.
Starman was doing very well.
I would like to know because because James Robinson was very. I don't think he had every issue mapped out, but he had he was mapped out. He
Yeah,
had the overall thing he had mapped out. And he wasn't
yeah,
a fan about like, okay, I got to put him in this crossover. So
sure,
he would do it very subtly, like it happened between these couple panels. Or
yeah,
it's like his whole that whole JSA run, you could put
mm,
it between two pages
yeah,
in one of the later Starman
yeah, yeah,
issues,
yeah,
which I love. I like it that he accommodated him, but he didn't
yeah.
like
And there
someone
was,
in this makes Mary mentions in this run that I saw it fought side by side with him in the Genesis thing, and I'm like, really? Was he in that? I didn't
oh
remember.
yeah, because Jack's on a couple of the covers of Genesis. You might have to do that actually. You might have to do that 4 issue series. You're gonna because Jack's on the cover of issue 1 because you see him and Superman and Martian Manhunter falling from the
Uh,
sky.
well, that'll be a good off week one because I'll have to go and
Yeah,
find that and read it because I don't remember that event
I,
at
I
all.
read it. I read it at the time. It's a bit new. It's a bit new godsy, and I wasn't that big on the new gods. But the other thing as well is like to remember, like quite early on in Starman, when Jack goes into I've forgotten her name. Is it Charity? Is it her
Yeah,
fortune teller shop? Yeah,
it's the
and
first issue.
yeah, and there's one where she kind of casts his fortune, and it mentions how he's going to meet Hawkman, but that never happens. And he's going to meet I think she calls them they of the Thunder or those of the Thunder, and you see a nice representation of Cap, Mary, and Freddie. So it was
Oh,
four.
so
It was four. Yeah,
there is an
there was.
illusion.
Yeah, there was a definite bit of foreshadowing that James was going to plan to feature them. So obviously, I'm guessing he must have worked with Jerry and liaised.
All right, that makes me because these are two people that I'd like to see work together.
Yeah. Oh, aye. Yeah. Imagine Jerry Ordway drawing a James
How
Robinson
about,
story.
hey, I'm going to put this out to the ether. James Robinson, Jerry Ordway do an all-star squadron story.
Yes, I'd be up for that. I'd read that.
Yeah,
See
because
the
both of them
whole
would they would pick the best heroes to be in it,
yeah.
and they would come from different and they could mix and match, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it wouldn't be
Yeah.
put like,
Yeah.
oh, let's put the Dan Garrett Blue Beetle
Yeah.
in it because now, you know what I mean?
Yeah. It could be because I've sort of said this many times, and I think I said it on the latest Earth-2 podcast. Why didn't Roy ever write a story where Minuteman teamed up with Star Spangled Kid and Stripesy because their
Yeah.
costumes are all the same? Roy was quite. He liked playing the toy box, but he liked using the characters that he liked in the toy box rather than sort of really kind of reaching out and think, right, who else? Because I think Airwave turns up for one episode, one issue, and he's brilliant. And you think, why is he not in it all the time?
Yeah, well, it's like I like Airwave as the kid character, of and DC's just never
Yeah.
used like the modern one. I like Wade's using him in an interesting way right now.
Yes.
And
Yes.
I'm happy for the character like he was a real person because
Yeah. Justice League Unlimited is very good.
yeah, Wade's doing wonders. But So let's start with the first Starman. We're going to do these fast,
Yeah,
folks,
yeah,
because my wife wants to spend some time with me, and I still have to edit 2 podcasts tonight before I go to bed.
yep.
And I'm handing out donuts at 6 a.m. in the children's hospital for a hospital week to say thank
Oh
you.
well, excellent.
Yeah, I'm a boss.
I could,
I'm
I
required
might,
to, but I don't mind
I
doing
might,
it.
I might swing by. I like donuts.
Yeah, Krispy Kreme. If you've never had an American Krispy Kreme donut, it is the
No, I
purest.
haven't.
Oh my God, they're like soft, buttery sugar delivery systems, and they're especially when they're hot.
Yeah,
At a Krispy, if you're driving by a Krispy Kreme, there go there'll be a light on that says "fresh batch" or
right,
something like
okay,
that, and that lets you know that they're warm.
right.
They're still warm, and people will get in that damn line. People are late to work and go, "Fuck it, they're warm. Let's go." I want some of their coffee that could burn. You could fucking melt tarmac with their coffee. People love it. It tastes like conch. It's really, really strong.
I walk
But
past a Krispy Kreme every day on my way to and from work.
you,
Working
oh, you
in
have them?
the shop.
Well,
We've
they're
got them
probably a
over
little
here.
different than ours because we
They
can put
probably
so
are.
much
There's
nasty
probably
shit in our bread, but they're
yeah. There's probably
delicious.
different. There's probably
But the
rules about
coating,
how
no,
much
but the
sugar.
coating
Yeah,
part, yeah, the flour
I
will
don't
have
take
less
it.
sugar,
I don't
but
take advantage of the fact as much as I
it's
should.
basically it's just covered in it's sealed in sugar, glazed
Right.
sugar, and they're delicious warm. You don't really need to chew them. They just kind of melt in your mouth. They're delicious.
Brilliant.
But so
So yeah,
so we'll start with issue
Starman
39,
39.
which
Yeah.
has Starman. I love this cover because it has the Nazi flag, Starman with his arm around Bulletman, who's handcuffed, and then Shazam in the background. And what
Yeah.
I like is Ordway does um
Because that's Tony still, isn't it? Yeah.
no, that's Tony.
Yeah.
Tony does the Starman covers emphasize Shazam,
Yes.
and the Shazam covers
Yes.
focus more on Starman.
Yeah.
So you get to see Tony do, the
Yeah.
Golden Age guys, and then the Ordway doing Jack and Ted.
Yeah.
But I'm going to
It's
say
very
this.
interesting.
I'm going to say this. My favorite drawing of Ted in both of these comics is by neither Tony or Jerry.
Right.
I like the way his costume is drawn in the flashbacks in Shazam.
Yes.
It's a great.
Yes.
We'll chat about it more. But
Yes.
I just
Yes.
yeah, it's amazing. But it's a
Yeah.
great
Well, it's,
cover.
yeah, we see it in part two. So yeah, part one, yeah, brilliant
Uh,
cover. Like because the whole gist of the story. So we can jump through it. Is that Bulletman's accused of being a traitor, and someone turns up some footage from the estate of Johnny Chambers. Remember, Johnny Quick had died a couple of years before this in issue 11 of Impulse Fact Fans. Um, and so there's some footage been found from his estate which claims to show that Jim Barr, aka Bulletman, was directing what the Nazis were up to when they were attacking. Now it tells
the
us where.
Normandy,
Yeah.
the
Now
ship,
I've
the
got a
SS.
feeling. I've got a feeling
Huh?
that this is that's. I'm sure that's in an issue of All Star Squadron
Yes,
or
it
an issue of
is.
Young All Stars.
Yes, it is. It's when they're coming back from Germany or something. It happens. It's a famous. It really happened.
Yeah.
It was sabotaged by Bundists
Right.
in America, and it capsized. And it's in an issue that Ordway drew,
Right. I couldn't.
or
I
maybe
so
maybe
remember.
early enough that Rick Buckler drew it.
Yeah, because I remember it was about 8 or 9, probably about 9 years since I last read All Star Squadron all the way through. So, but I remember reading that and going, I was impressed. That's the bit that James Robinson and Jerry were sort of referencing. So yeah, part one starts off with like it's Ted sort of reminiscing about the mission that he went on with Bulletman during the war, and
But they can't talk it because it's super secret.
yeah, and it's cool because Ted's got gloves on and he's got sort of heavier boots because obviously they're flying through Europe where the weather's it's where it's colder. Bulletman's got a fur-lined jacket on over his uniform, which is cool because you often sort of wonder, like, do superheroes get cold just running about in their long underwear?
Yeah. Well, they got what I like in the first. Oh, I forgot. No, Tony drew that costume that way too.
Yeah,
He just had the gloves a
yeah.
different color.
It looks better on it. Jerry's is much nicer though. No disrespect to Tony's. Jerry's is just a bit fresher.
Yeah.
So then, yeah, so it's the flashback to Ted sort of remembering this mission that he went on with Bulletman because Bulletman's decency is being questioned. But then we get a couple of pages that Tony does that are coloured in black and white of Green Lantern and Johnny Quick and sort of fighting the Nazis that are trying to sink that ship. Well, they
rocket
have sunk the ship.
Nazis.
Yeah.
Nazis with jetpacks. It's fucking
Yes,
great.
that's right. Because that's what Jack says when he hears about it. I remember that. That's hilarious. Yeah, and Ted's unimpressed. So we then get a sort of quick sort of it works very well as a new issue for jumping on sort of point because there's bound to be some people reading this that haven't read Starman before that do read Power of Shazam. So we get Jack talking to his tattoo artist friend about the O'Dares, which is a nice sort of recap of what's all going on with them, and Matt gets a bit of emphasis, and then he talks about Sadie a little bit. And there's a nice bit of banter about Jack buying some stuff, but then obviously, I mean, page 16 of part 1 is just gorgeous. Look at that Opal, holding it up for the benefit of our YouTube viewers. That just detailing of Opal there is just sublime, absolutely gorgeous.
Oh yeah, yeah.
So quite a lot of part 1 is just taken up with this sort of Jack having a catch-up conversation with the tattoo guy. So it's not
Morris,
really necessary.
I just last night talked about with Brent from Legion of Super Substitute Pilots and Kirby. We just discussed that Ted and the strip in Secret Files 1 where Jack is talking about Ted and Morris, and Sadie's and Ted are talking about Jack.
Yes. Yeah, that's a brilliant. I mean, that the secret. My 2 cents worth on the Secret Files. It was a brilliant comic. It was a really, really good read, but it had this timeline at the back.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember reading this, and it was like I remember a shadow kind of falling over me that day because it sort of said it had details of when Ted becomes Starman, David becomes Starman, and it said right at the end, Opal City destroyed, Jack no longer Starman. And I remember it was the first sort of inkling that we'd had that this series was not going to run forever.
Oh yeah, we talked about that because the app has the map,
right?
But none of the collections had the map.
All right, of course.
Yeah,
right.
Because I don't know, but I think you're right. This is we get a lot of exposition in this, but the backstory to the mission, the black and white to show you it. And I think if you were coming in this fresh, you don't really. I mean, you have to know who Jack is maybe and Ted is, but you don't have to know who the All-Star Squadron is. Oh, it's the 40s heroes, whatever.
Yeah.
And
there's the fun bit when Jack's talking to Jim Barr, but he doesn't really know who he is because he confuses Ibis and Sargon, and he says that he thought Jim's superhero name was Rocket Man rather than Bulletman. So he talks about they talk about the Fawcett City heroes, and then Jack's obviously Jim is going to see Ted because Ted's his alibi.
Yeah.
This is Jim couldn't have destroyed this ship because he was helping Ted.
I like that whole sequence. Using the 9-panel grid to have the conversation, and him really, but Ted. I mean, Jack really bungles it because Jack really that Bar's getting a little like Sargon. Ismus.
Yeah, because you get the point where Jim starts to doubt that Jack's going to be any use to what they're trying to do.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, because there's the bit when bottom page 18 when they're talking to the rocket powered Nazis, and Jack says, "Flying Nazis, cool, like in a Republic cereal or something." Yeah, because I mean that's the thing to Jack. It's he's coming to it from his his love of the old school aesthetic, but
oh yeah,
Jim and Ted actually lived it.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and that's it because Ted tells Jack that Jim had saved his life at this point on this mission that they were at. They were flying over the tundra, and Jack says, "Right, well, I have to do it then. I've got to get involved." And so they talk about how Minuteman, who works for the government, is likely to be involved. But then Jack asks, which who are the heroes of Fawcett City nowadays? And Jim says it's the Marvel family, and Jack's like, oh right, okay, tremendous, basically.
Great.
Oh boy,
Yeah, he's not happy about it. I love that face. Um, but I like at the end when he agrees to do it and he shakes he Barr's hand. He goes, "Thanks, nice meeting you, Mr. Barr. You have my gratitude, Jack." And Jack just leans in and whispers, "If you saved my dad's life, Mr. Barr, then it's you then it's you have mine. So
yeah,
gratitude." And then he flies off. And then he meets Captain Marvel floating by. He
yeah,
doesn't have to go to
and
Fawcett City.
yeah, and it's that last page is just stunning. It really is nice. The way it's all sort of like the page beforehand, but it's all sort of, you know,
Oh, the
Tony,
pan
yeah, Tony sets up the panel structure like it's the shape of the Shazam Thunderbolt.
it's
And I now realize actually, of course, like, on my, not to be a bore, but I've got my Shazam tattoo in my left arm that
mhm.
my sister paid for last year, and then above that I've got a sort of tribal star that I got done because it looked a bit like Jack, the touch of the Jack sort of style to it. So yes, they're both those heroes are on my left arm essentially. But Tony drawing Captain Marvel is amazing.
It's really different. It kind of
He looks a lot more. I think I'm going to stick my neck out here. Looking at the last page of part one, page 22, as Jack arrives in Fawcett and
mhm.
Captain Marvel standing there. It to me, it looks very much like the movie Serial Cap.
Yeah, it
Um,
does.
is it
Was that
Tom
no, no.
Tyler?
Yeah,
Is that
that's
his
it. Well,
name?
it's Tim Tyler. I was about to say Kirk Allen, but Kirk Allen was Black Hawk and Superman.
Yeah. Black Hawk is soon to reappear on the Earth-2 podcast. Listeners, just throwing that out there.
I hope they show up at some time in their Dick Dillon superhero costumes.
If Peter lets me. Oh, we did that. Yeah, we did that story ages ago. Did that a few years ago.
Oh, okay.
But this is
Cool.
we're gonna do the first issue of the '70s revival.
Oh, very cool. Yeah, that is the
So
worst. Those Dick Dillon costumes are like the worst ever.
yeah,
I was
they're
telling
so
Kirby
funny.
about him. He's like, "What is it?" Yeah, you got to look at him, man. It's
They're
horrific.
so funny.
They're trauma inducing. So we had the first issue of on Shazam part two is Power of Shazam 35, and it's got Jared. I love this cover. You got Jared Woodward drawing Jack charging um, Captain Marvel with the staff and Bulletman flying away, and then Ted in the background holding, I
Yeah,
guess it's his cosmic rod or piece of
yeah,
art.
yeah,
Um,
yeah. Because it links up with Jack's on
oh,
cover
okay.
36, and it's interesting. Jerry draws Jack in a very, especially he draws him in a very sort of style guide. He's not copying Tony's drawings of him. It looks like maybe a fact sheet was prepared run about the time of issue 4 of Zero Hour or something, and that's how Jerry draws him.
Yeah, because he's got the goatee. He's got the
Yeah,
goatee, and Jack doesn't have the goatee now, does he? No, he
I
doesn't.
think
He's clean shaven.
yeah, he's got the goatee on
Uh,
the
um,
cover, but he's clean shaven. Um, he's clean shaven in the story. It's interesting just looking because by this point we're so used to the way that Tony draws Jack. It's really Jack wasn't really in the habit of turning up elsewhere. So it's
no,
interesting just to
no,
see him
and
being drawn by someone else. But it's a while, the part two, Shazam 35, also published, according to Mike's, on the 3rd of December 1997. It starts off like with just Captain Marvel and Mary wearing the white version of her uniform. Then they see a TV report about Jim Barr being, allegedly involved in sort of conspiring against the US, and we get the archive footage. See Johnny Quick at the top of page 4, which is pretty cool.
yeah,
And then we get Jim Barr sort of his sort of remembrance of the flashback that Ted had in part one, and as a quick short appearance of Minuteman as the guy who kind of briefs them for going on their mission. And as Ross said, was the Jerry's rendering of what Bulletman and Ted look like as they're fighting their rocket Nazis.
well,
Is
this is Kraus on this one.
yeah. Sorry. Of course it is. I don't know why I said Jerry. Apologies, everyone. You don't stop. You can stop shouting your device now. But it's really interesting just looking at this and comparing it to the way Tony did it, because Tony's is sort of obviously at night time and it's very dark and underlit and very moody, whereas Peter's version is a bit brighter. I think it's
Well,
fair
I
to
think
say.
it's kind of the difference in the books too. That
Yeah,
Power
yeah,
Shazam is very traditional four color superhero,
yes,
positive DC wholesome, and and it's what Power Shazam should be. It
yeah,
should be like Superman lightish,
yeah, yeah. That's fair.
uh, and you get that, and I do like Krause's art. I do like it a great deal. Who's his inker on this? Because this
Have
is
a
one of
look.
those things about. Oh,
Mm,
it's Dick.
it's Giordano. Ah, not
This is
bad.
good. I'm not always a big fan of Giordano's inking, but this is sometimes I think he takes me out of some people's art.
Okay.
Yeah,
I've
but
always I was always a fan. I was
well, I
always a
do.
fan.
I like him with Neil and certain people, but there's sometimes
Sure.
I've seen him on. I didn't always like him on Lopez
Okay. That's fair.
because I think Lopez is better by himself.
Yeah. Some
Uh,
people do that though. It's like, Tom Palmer was an inker back in the day. We talked before we started recording, we talked about the Marvel House style and stuff. And Tom Palmer was one of these guys, he almost obliterates anyone that he inks.
yeah,
It's you
but when
can
he's with the right
it's
person,
yeah.
like Buscema
Yeah. There's a nice sort
or
of
Adams, I like him on Adams. I'm not the biggest Adams fan, but his inks on Adams increase Grow War
mhm.
are really, really
Oh
good.
yeah.
But
Yeah.
I like this. And Barr is so I have a question. I don't remember this, but Barr's daughter is Captain Marvel's girlfriend. How old is Billy supposed to be?
I think by this point he's about 14 or 15 or something.
Okay, so when he's Captain Marvel, he's dating this full grown woman. Ew, Billy. Well, I don't know whether to
So
high five Billy or scold him
yeah,
because
it's a bit it
Captain
doesn't
Marvel's a different personality, right?
no. Well, see, at this point, this was one of the things post crisis.
Friends.
Pre crisis, Cap and Billy were very different
Yep.
people.
You there, buddy?
I'm almost paraphrasing Roy here. Yep. Oh, you've glitched right there, but we're back now. Okay. Pre crisis, Billy and Cap really were different people. Um, but one change that
Okay.
Jerry sort of did that has sort of stuck is that Captain Marvel is Billy in that body. Because remember, there was the whole time in JSA
Now
when
I really prefer that. I
I'm
really do
I'm
like
kind
it.
of yeah. It's
When
it's
it's
I think
managed well, it's
nowadays it adds a lot of depth to the character. It's a lot more richer. And it led to that really interesting stuff in Shazam in JSA when Billy there's an issue when Billy's sort of trapped as Billy and can't turn into Captain Marvel. So him and Courtney have an issue together. And they kind of, fall for each other a little bit. And then so Courtney knows his secret, whereas it's obvious that a lot of the other JSA members don't because there's an issue where Jay kind of warns Billy off, warns Captain Marvel away from Courtney because he just sees an older guy talking to a younger girl. He doesn't know the truth that he's really Billy Batson. And it puts that sort of schism and kind of leads to Captain Marvel leaving the JSA, which I was kind of disappointed about because when Power Shazam finished, very soon afterwards he starts being a regular member of the JSA, so it kept him visible. He was around for a long time.
yeah.
As a result,
And I
so
think he fits in I think he's a better match for the JSA
yeah, I think
than the
so.
JLA.
Yeah, because he's a golden age character after all originally. So it's and there's a purity to the sort of sensibility of him. I think that fits in well with that. So yeah, we see the little rocket scientist guy getting released from prison and sort of picked up by a Nazi guy. Sarge Steele gets involved, talking to Jim Barr and all this kind of stuff.
Yeah,
Because
and I like how for some reason it looks like I think Giordano inked Sarge Steele to look like he would have looked in like his Charlton days because isn't he a Charlton character?
yeah, that's right. Yeah, I believe so. Yeah,
Yeah.
I've read very little Charlton stuff to be honest.
I think the most I read recently was when I got the Peacemaker DC Finest, and I had all of his
Right.
Peacemaker appearances in it, which were neat, but they're it's they're neat.
Yeah, it's nothing.
The most of that trade though is the stuff in the Cooperberg Vigilante and
Right.
yeah,
I
which
haven't. I
I
haven't actually bought a single DC Finest yet. I might get the 0 hour
I'm up
ones
to
'cause I
six
think
of them.
right. I was tempted with the Legion one,
It's
but I've
the
got quite a
same
lot of
as
it.
the Omni. It's a good mapping. I
Right.
think the 02 ones, it's mapped the same way as the Omni.
Right.
And I
Okay.
felt in that mapping of it. And it only has the zero issues you really need.
Right. Okay.
So, which is cool.
Yeah.
I like them. I read the Batgirl in a little over a week, and I'd never read any of that stuff, and I absolutely loved it.
Right. Okay.
So I also got the Gail Simone Wonder Woman. That's next on my reading pile. So,
Yeah. It's
but I
it's
like
good
this.
that
I like we get to see a little bit. This what I liked about this comic was I hadn't read this run in ever, but maybe when it was coming out,
sure.
that I understood what was going on, and I really I I like this. I didn't need to have read the 30 issues or whatever before this to know what I was doing. I
Of
kind of
course.
got it. And I like that the two issues are they're the flip side of each other. We see Jack to the
Yeah.
cliffhanger, and then we have Captain Marvel getting to the cliffhanger in two different issues.
Yeah. And what's sort of
Um,
significant at the end of part two is obviously Jim Barr's daughter brings him his Bulletman gear so he can escape from where he's being held. But Mary is doing some digging online, and she points out that Johnny Chambers worked for Sees All, Tells All News, but the footage that's being purport that's caused all the grief that people are saying is Johnny Chambers footage. Actually, as Mary points out, is sort of bookmarked as having movie tone on it, which means that Johnny Chambers couldn't have shot it, which means if it's Johnny, it's not legit. So Cap flies off to kind of go to try and find Jim Barr so he can try and sort everything out. So as he's flying off, that's when he flies. You know, he heads to Opal just as Jack's about to leave Opal to fly to Fawcett.
yeah. And I do like that, but I will say this: if we're going to judge the two different the final panels,
Yes,
Tony's is a little better.
yeah, with absolutely no disrespect
No,
to
but
Peter,
it's like,
but
dude,
you know,
you're up against
yeah,
you're up
and
against you're up against Tony.
it's interesting
It's a
putting them side by
thankless job.
side because you can do that you know that anal sort of thing where you can sort of spot that Jack is, you know, if you put them side by side, and Shazam Jack's wearing a sort of purple shirt and blue chinos, whereas if you look at it in the way he's been coloured in Shazam, he's wearing an orange shirt and brown chinos, and you know, it's that's just unfortunate, really. It doesn't ruin anything, but it's yeah, it's a little bit of, you know, communication between the colorists wouldn't have done any harm, but it doesn't get in the way. I mean, side by side they're brilliant because what you've got on the Starman page, you've got Starman sort of facing. Jack has his back to us, but we're looking over his shoulder at Captain Marvel, and Captain Marvel announces himself, and we see the Captain Marvel logo, and then the final page of Powder Shazam, Cap is flying up behind Jack, and he calls on him, and we get the Starman logo. I love anytime a logo is actually used in a speech
In a
bubble.
panel.
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
really
I do too.
nice.
And Starman's
Um,
logo is so good. It's one of those. It doesn't really change, does it?
no, I think it's there for the duration.
Yeah, it's perfect. I have a T-shirt with it on it that is wearing out and wearing out.
Yeah, I've got one somewhere as well. I had the black one that had the logo in the front and the sort of astrological thing on the back. And I've got a
Oh,
feeling I had another one as well. I've got a feeling that
I've
was.
got one with just the logo across the chest. I'd love one. I had
I've
to
got a
buy
feeling
a
of that.
hoodie from Redbubble to get the logo, that logo. Folks,
Right.
my background is the back of Jack's leather jacket. So we're gonna move
Yeah.
on to
I've
issue
got a feeling I had
40.
another one. I think I had another one. I think I had another white. I think I had a white Starman T-shirt that was a Tony illustration, but that probably faded to hell. I remember it being like I was quite skinny when, you know, 20 years ago. I'm still quite skinny. But I remember that T-shirt hanging off. I'll need to see if I can find that actually. So
Yeah,
yeah, part three is in yeah, issue 40, published first
yeah.
week of January 1998.
Another great Tony Harris cover, and we get to see Minuteman the way he looked in the 40s. He's wearing one of those blouses. I want to call them blouses, like Firebrand does. It's like a thin,
Sure.
it's kind of see-through mesh. It's like, I guess that was a fashion
Yeah.
statement for men.
Yeah.
Um, but I see why he should team up with Star Spangled Kid.
Oh yeah, it'd be absolutely hilarious. You know, it could have been like, you know, one issue of All Star Squadron instead of like instead of retail. You know, instead of retelling, that funny paper story or something, or instead of going down the Frankenstein, Iron Monroe, Gladiator route in Young All Stars, he could have done some interesting stuff. Got Minuteman in to team up with the Star Spangled Kid and Stripes, say, for a couple issues. That would have been funny.
I'll have all the patriotic costume characters to go on a mission.
Exactly.
Yeah, so everybody looks alike. They're going to look like an American cheerleading squad doing a patriotic routine.
Yeah.
But I like it. It's a good draw. I mean, it's really pretty.
It's gorgeous. I'd love to see it without the lettering, and love to see both of Tony's covers without the.
And it's very watercolor too. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
More so than normal.
Yeah. That's fair. Yeah.
Because the gangsters on
that's
the
a really
edge.
good point.
Yeah, it's really beautiful.
Really good point.
Where Ordway's covers look like they've been done in a charcoal drawing and then colored. I always feel like his look like that.
Yeah. Because I mean, Tony's always looked a bit more kind of oily than this, don't they? But you're right, especially with the flag and the way that Jack West and Minuteman's been sort of coloured. They do look a little bit softer, I think, than what Tony normally does. So there's a cracking splash panel starts off issue 40.
Just a
Jack
single
reacting.
shot. Yeah. His eyes are bugged out, like, oh shit.
Yeah. And part three's basically just a big, most of it's just the fight, inevitably. But they have a bit of a chat at first. Stop let the stop let's team up chat does happen.
Yeah, and then the fight starts.
Yeah, and there's a nice bit when Jack is sort of reminiscing about the other Fawcett heroes. When he thinks about Minuteman and Spy Smasher and Commando Yank and then Mr. Scarlet and Pinky.
And he's like, Pinky?
Because
can you believe that? Oh,
I know.
Oh, for the return of the kid sidekick.
That's something that Pete and I have been talking about, because the next JLA JSA crossover that we're doing on the Earth-2 podcast is the one that brings in the Fawcett heroes. And we're trying to, who are we going to get to play Mr. Scarlet and Pinky?
Oh my God. Oh my
so
God.
Ross and Kirby will be playing the Flash again, listeners. Don't worry, they're already booked.
Yes.
I think Kirby, that may
When's
be
the next time
Ted's
sure. When is Ted in another team up though?
God, I don't know, man. I don't know. I think he's in
one.
He's in a couple of issues of the revived All-Star comics, but I don't think we're going to do any of them full cast. But he must come back. Is he in the one that when they find out Canary's origin?
Yeah, I think he is.
Canary's daughter. I've got a feeling he's in that one. I cannot wait to hand Kelly the page when when she has to sort of
play both.
Yeah,
play both of them.
Yeah, it's going to be right. How do you feel about this? That'll be quite funny. But yes, there's a nice shot of the Fawcett heroes drawn by Tony Harris. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, and he puts a little extra into Mr. Scarlet and Pinky.
Yeah.
But Mr. Scarlet has a really inappropriate smile on his face hanging out with a child. Commando Yank. Yeah.
Tony drawing Captain Marvel is astonishing.
Yeah, he is. It's definitely
it's
the movies. It's Tim Tyler because because there's no Fred McMurray. There ain't any Alec Ross version.
Is that who? Yeah, you're right. You're right. Yeah,
because, he's basically straight. It's Fred McMurray from Double Indemnity.
Yeah, that's because the gentleman. I think that's what the character's called in Astro City, isn't it? He's had a couple of cover appearances by this point. Yeah. Yeah,
and Ross is like, no, he's because he's the Shazam analog.
Yeah. The story, there was years and years before they did the story that explained that, and it was brilliant.
Oh yeah,
it was really sweet.
Yeah, there's supposed to be more Astro City come out. Please, Kurt, get it done.
Yeah, while we're all still alive.
Yeah, please.
So yeah, the fight
takes place in
Opal, and it looks. I mean, the spread over page 8 and page 9 is just beautiful because you've got a dark opal sky behind, and then these insert panels of them fighting, and they're trying to kind of. You get a sense that Cap's trying to calm it down, but eventually he has to kind of assert himself and uses greater strength. You can tell that Cap's kind of holding back. Jack keeps blasting him,
Yeah.
And then there's a nice little sequence with Ted and Jim Barr in a flying car.
Yeah. Ted made himself a flying Cadillac. It's awesome to see Ted make this kind of invention, that he's having so much fun in later life.
Yeah. And then there's a nice bit when they start doing some interesting, because this is still an issue of Starman. So James doesn't really quite give it over to the crossover, because we get a nice sort of flashback to Jack and Ted discussing how Jack can sort of control the rod mentally.
Yeah, the stuff
Um,
that we take for granted now, that I was trying to explain it to, I was talking to Liz, I think it was, I don't know, I was talking to somebody about how Jack just hangs on to it, where once he gives it to
to
uh,
Courtney.
Courtney, that she goes, no, you can ride the thing like a surfboard.
Yeah.
You know, that she is way better with the staff than he is.
Yeah.
But Jack gets there. He gets there.
Yeah.
But the force field, I think this is just James and Tony going, he can't just blast shit. We gotta,
Yeah. And it's really nice. It does that because I think I might have said before, when they did the story that ran from like issue 11 through issue 16, whatever, and the one when you got the same events from everyone else's point of view.
yeah.
And I remember when that story sort of started, going, oh god, right, we go a 6-part story, but then you read it and you go, oh right, we're getting the same events, but from Jack's perspective, from Ted's perspective, etc. And it was really, really nice. So instead of just being, James does it, showing how clever he is, instead of just giving us a fight for 20 pages, he drops in this character flashback stuff of Jack and Ted talking about what the rod can do and stuff. And that's not what you'd expect in a normal sort of fight scene issue. So
No,
it's just giving it
it's
a
a
bit more
genius way
depth.
to it's a genius way to give you some exposition
Yeah,
and still give you the action.
yeah,
And Tony isn't really, his Ted and Jack are so good right now. You know what I mean?
yeah, yeah.
It's just, and we don't have many more issues with him drawing.
No, that's it. I mean, there's a
He's coming
handful,
up
and
soon.
yep. So Billy and Jack
Um,
keep fighting, and they're talking about how knowing that Bar's innocent, and then Cap has drawn blood. Jack's bleeding from the mouth, and then the O'Dares and the rest of the cops turn
calls him,
up.
yeah, he gets mad.
Yeah,
Yeah, Jack, he's like, you're a bully, like a little kid
yeah,
would. And
yeah,
he punches, um, you know, I think Jack may have lost a tooth on that punch.
yeah. He probably did. Because it looks at one point like I think the shirt he's wearing is sleeveless, but it does look there's a bit of a tear there maybe. But yeah, it's quite interesting that he wants to knock Jack out so he can try and find Bulletman, but then the O'Dales and everyone else, Clarence and everyone else turn up, and Billy realizes that he's probably gone too far, so he releases
Yeah,
Jack.
I like that panel where the O'Dares are there.
Yeah,
That single page where all the O'Dares and a bunch of cops are pointing guns at Marvel.
yeah,
Um, and
really
Clarence is
cool.
going, you want a piece of Starman? You got to go through all of us to get it. And he's like,
Yeah,
but I'm a hero. Not here, not today, not to the Opal City Police Department, and not to the O'Dare family. And he just drops him. I'll find Bar here or elsewhere. I'll find it.
yeah, yep. And then Hope and Mason help Jack to his feet, and um, he flies off to find Jack flies off because he knows that Ted is with Jim and that they could be in danger.
Yeah, I like it. It is because it isn't all. I didn't really realize it until you said it, that it's basically just a long fight scene
Yeah,
with a lot of great exposition.
yeah. With say there's the nice interlude with Ted and Jim when they sort of talk about you know they talk about Jack a little bit. They're listening into the report on the news of what's going on between Jack and Starman, and then Jack starts thinking about how he has to work better than this if he's going to beat Cap. So there's the flashback that we just talked about, and it's good. It kind of I'm glad, with no disrespect to Peter Krause, I'm glad that Tony got to draw the fight, because Tony
Yeah,
doesn't normally draw superhero fighting sort of stuff in Starman. It's normally quite
it only
considered.
happens like in the grand finale of a story.
Yeah, yeah.
Like,
So
okay,
it's
now
nice.
we fight. It's part 5 of the story.
Yeah,
We've had all the emotional beats and the soap opera stuff and the
yeah,
the villains Robin stuff or doing whatever.
yeah. So part four in
This is a
issue
great cover.
36 Persham. It's a beautiful cover.
Ah, bon sir, I forgot he was in this,
Yeah.
which
Spoilers.
makes sense in the 40s. Ah, bon
Exactly.
sir,
Exactly.
have Ah, bon sir
Exactly.
do also Squadron in Space story.
Why did yeah, exactly. Why didn't Roy write I suppose because he
Well,
could have
he
done it
did.
post.
He did that. He did the
Could have
retelling
done
of
it.
that All Star comic. All Star
He
sucks.
could
Good.
he could have done it post crisis, I suppose, couldn't he? He could have had Alan meet Abin Sur. Yeah, that'd have been cool.
Yeah.
Um so yeah, the cover kind of gives away part of what we learn during the story. It's Abin Sur and Bulletman and Ted, and there's this weird sort of knobbly shaped green figure being held in Abin's sort of power ring force shield sort of stuff, and sort of surrounded by Jerry's painting of Jack holding up the cosmic rod, which links in with his drawing for Ted for issue 35. And again, they don't link up quite as beautifully as the two Starman covers, but it's still great. It's echoes the same idea. It's
This would be
gorgeous.
something I wouldn't mind a poster without
Yeah,
any of the logo stuff, any of the
yeah,
text.
exactly. But nice,
If,
really nice to see all of them without the trade dress.
yeah.
So the story just basically picks up. There's a sort of a slow dissolve, as we say on the Earth-2 podcast, because Jack is between the end of part 3 and the start of part 4. He has flown to Fawcett to catch up with Cap, and they have
Yeah.
another bit of a row before Mary arrives and calms everyone down. And Jack sees Mary Marvel, and you see him, stars floating around his head, and he says, "I'm in love," and it's like, right, steady on, mate.
She's a teenager.
I'm telling you,
Well,
that's
she,
one thing that I've hated from the last. I hated in the 2000s sort of Dan DiDio era was when they turned Mary Marvel into a sort of black rubber fetish girl. Um, she's had a few she's had a few years recently where she's they've kind of got her back to basics. She had her own mini series and stuff, and she's been
I like
treated
that
really, really
last
well.
miniseries they did
Yeah,
with
it
her
was it was it was
And
amazing.
Hoppy the bunny just being a
Yeah,
rabbit.
it was great. And of course, Grace played her so well in the movies, and everyone sort of still hopes that Grace will get another chance to play Mary, but we'll see what happens.
Yeah.
It was really cool when you could see Grace Fulton, who played her in the two Shazam films. She posted on her Instagram that her mood board, and she had a lot of images of Mary from throughout her career, and she really did the research, and she was great. I loved those films. I was so disappointed with the way that all played out, the way and
Yeah.
Zachary Levi's political
Yeah. Well, it's like,
endorsements. But anyway,
ugh. Yeah. And I like him as an actor. I liked his stuff. And I like the movies. I think he understood the character.
very much so.
And that show, people were going, well, you can't start this up. It's a kid show.
Yeah,
It is. Shazam should be for kids,
yeah,
or all ages. But yeah, I do like this. And then we get to the Batson family. It's weird to see them with. I'm gonna put this. It's gonna sound weird, but I like the movie. I like the more recent adoptive family. That's kind
sure.
of in the recent run and in the movies. That
Yeah, yeah,
Billy's uber white, but the parents are people of
yeah,
color.
yeah,
And they're foster parents, and they're very nice. This is, the nice Batsons, not the bad guy Batsons,
yeah.
which I don't like
Absolutely.
the Oliver twist when they do them, that the Batsons are bad or whatever. I
Yeah.
think sometimes they've done that, and I think it doesn't make sense.
Yeah, it's been the way that they've always been a bit kind of a bit nasty, but the casting. I mean, that's one thing with the films. Peter Sandberg, the director, his casting is always phenomenal.
Oh,
He's
I
a
love all
brilliant
the
director.
kids, and I do
They're all
like
the
that,
two the parents are amazing as well.
and I like that the fact that instead of having the Captain Marvel Junior and the lieutenants, you have Junior, but the lieutenants are three other people.
Yeah,
It's not three white guys.
yeah, yeah. That's the point. We've not done them yet on E2 yet. We need to think about that. We need to think about that. I think it's a world's finest story that they're in. We'll maybe do. So there's lots of conversating about what's going on and who's done what and all this sort of stuff. Which we don't really need to go into a huge amount of detail of, but there's a big political rally
A bunch of
big
Nazis,
protest.
yeah.
Yep. And Jim Barstett's up to speak, and then we get a few pages of the nice flashback to the mission that him and Ted were actually on, and we see this weird lumbering green alien, and then Abin Sur arrives to sort of just in the nick of time as it's knocked them down and opens the thing up, and Mr. Mind pops out.
Yeah.
And then he uses the power ring. Abin uses the power ring on Starman and Bulletman, so that basically when Minuteman arrives to collect them, they've forgotten everything that's gone on. And even if they'd wanted to sort of tell everyone what happened, they couldn't because Abin wiped their memories.
Yeah. I like that there are no word balloons and you don't see them speaking at all.
Yeah, it's all done silently, and it's perfect because you really don't need it. Really
Yeah,
don't
you
need no
don't.
dialogue. And a good comic should work that way. I think it's almost like a silent film sort of approach. A good comic works that way. You should be able to read, look at the pages and figure out what's going on.
Yeah, and this is the perfect kind of way because they give you reaction shots, they give you moments of stillness where like they're looking at the monster.
Yeah.
It's not all action, but it's all visual storytelling. I do like Krause's version of Avensor. It looks very early Silver Age.
Yes. Yeah.
And I do like Ted's costume, and this is so cool. I do. This looks more like what a costume would look like in the 40s instead of the long johns.
Hmm. Yeah.
So,
Yeah, because Starman's costume is obviously he's wearing a heavier jacket rather than just his normal. Because you can see the side buttons. And actually, it kind of echoes the style of uniform that Captain Marvel's wearing at this point, a
yeah,
military style jacket.
yeah, I like that. I think it's very cool. But I like all that. I also like that the guy they got the evil the scientist that or the guy they got out of prison
Yeah, yeah,
is actually a shape changer.
yeah. So it's the reveal that it was him that was in the movie footage and not the actual Bullet Man. So that's quite good. That sneaks in towards the end. Um, and he gets shot. Unfortunately, I think he dies. Does he? I think
Yeah,
he
because
does.
what he does is he's disguised as a cop and he's been ordered to kill Barr, shoot Barr. But
Yeah.
what he does is he hands the gun to Barr, turns into Barr, and then
Yep.
both of them are at the thing, and then he turns into Bulletman to show that it was a setup,
Yeah,
And I
that's right.
like it. He
Because
goes,
yeah,
as a young man, the American Nazi Party welcomed me and my talents in order to undermine the war effort. I posed as others in scores of propaganda films. For this, I apologize. And then
yeah,
he gets killed by one of the Nazis.
yeah. Some young Nazi punk with a mullet, by the looks of things. It's yeah. And then Jack flies overhead and just a few seconds too late to save the old guy. Mary flies in and grabs the guns, and yeah,
It's, well, Nazis and dickheads like that is kind of timely, a little too timely for my taste in this country.
yeah.
But I like it. And then
It's great fun as a
it
story. I
is.
mean, it's really satisfying. The cover. It's a shame that they put Abin on the cover because I think like
And
I suppose that
yeah,
they've
I
got to
think it'd
try
been
and sell it.
better.
Yeah, as a surprise, it would have been lovely. But the whole thing, the whole four chapters work really, really well. It's plotted very well. Inevitably you get a big fight, and there's a lot of dialogue heavy stuff on either side, but it feels really balanced and it's interesting and it's solid and it's good and chewy and everyone gets something to do. I think the only thing I would have liked more about it would maybe have been if Captain Marvel Jr. had rocked up because my dad used to call me Junior. So when I had that issue of Shazam you know, with Freddie on the cover and you got a little flashback to his origin when I was a little boy, I thought that Junior was amazing. So it'd have been nice to see, if he'd popped up. And that's just me being greedy because we get appearances from Bloomin', you know, Mr. Scarlet and Pinky and Johnny Quick. So we're getting spoiled regardless.
Oh yeah, and I think it's a nice little because where it's falling in Starman,
Yeah.
it's nice to little because the next issue is Shade and Matt, and
Absolution and
then
Blood. Yeah.
yeah, and then after that is Times Past,
Yep.
and after that is the 80-page giant.
Yeah, because the 40 numbered issues are really quite random and quite sporadic. I mean, I've heard that that's when James was having some sort of personal sort of trouble So he kind of lost a bit of focus, which is why there's a couple of issues of, excuse me, there's a couple of times past issues quite close together. Um, the overarching, excuse me, the overarching narrative kind of breaks down a little bit for a few months. And I remember actually during 1998, I actually paused on reading Starman for about 5 or 6 issues because I was aware there was an awful lot of one shot type things, times past flashbacks happening. So I kind of I'm going to read these all at once before we get back to the
Yeah.
plot, because obviously we're building up to Jack going out into space.
Yeah, and Tony leaving. I
Yeah.
think some of it has to do with Tony's exit when they were. I don't know the exact timing of it,
Uh-huh.
but it seems like we tied certain things up. And because I haven't even opened the second omnibus because I'm about to when I do the 80-page design, I'm halfway.
Right.
Well, wait a minute. I don't
Right.
want to say halfway, folks, because I know I mentioned this to Dave at one point, and he got a little like you might have been through text. Yes, is that first JSA compendium,
Mm.
80% of it has Jack in it, and it all happens in a row.
Yeah.
So do I do all of it?
I think you have to.
I know,
I
but
think
how do
for
I?
I think the way it's interesting. Do you do it as it's published, which means you're only about a year? As the crow flies, you're only about a year away from it starting. I think you wait until Jack mentions it in the ongoing. I think that's the best way to do it.
And just do it straight there.
Yeah,
Yeah,
do it
it'll be
then.
fun. And
Or
I might do it as arcs. I might not do individual
yeah,
2 issues.
I
I
mean,
might
see what?
just
Yeah, yeah, that would work better because I mean, there's a couple of one and dones amongst that Jack's not involved in too much. So, but he's involved in the opening story. He's involved in the extant stuff. I think he's in the
yeah.
Hawkman story as well, isn't he? I can't remember.
Yeah, he is. That's his last one.
Yeah.
He leaves
So
after no, he's gone by then. He
well,
leaves right
thing is,
before it.
the thing
I
is
mean,
though, the other option is to do them as arcs roughly as they're published, because here and there there's little foreshadows and little hints from some of the stuff that Jack says and does that are kind of, but then um we don't want to. Some of it does tie it, does kind of drops hints at what ultimately happens towards the end of Starman, but it doesn't really give anything away. So I don't know. It's a weird one. Maybe the listeners could let you know what they think.
yeah, I may have to put a poll up. I may have to put a
Yeah,
poll up because I'm also going to have to do Courtney.
of course. But
I'm going to have.
that's only like 14 issues or something, isn't it? But Jack's involved in the Zero issue quite strongly,
Oh yeah,
and
and I do,
trying to
and I have to cover um the when everybody gets turned into a kid.
Sins of Youth, amazing.
Sins of Youth. I have to do Sins of Youth because Jack's a
Yeah,
little kid with a bandana. He's quite
yeah,
twerpy,
and
and
he's a little prick. He's
he is.
absolutely hilarious.
He's a horrible child.
They're all so funny in that. Like, there's the whole thing when they keep getting our man to repeat, "I'm intelligent machine colony from the 853rd century," and they're like unplugging his arm and all this sort of stuff, and like,
Oh
make
my
him say it
god.
again. And Jack's got the bandana and the big hoop earring, and adult Courtney can't stand him, and Sandy the golden boy is still trying to be up, straight backed and heroic, and some of them are just dicks. They're absolute brats. I think
That's how I
Canary's
became
told
a Young Justice fan.
right.
When
All
this
right,
was an
okay,
event, I hadn't read them, and
right.
then I went, "Oh, I have to buy this because
Oh,
it's absolute genius."
Young Justice is a brilliant book.
Yeah,
It's really,
I
really
was
good.
on. It hasn't aired yet, but I did an episode of a Fantastic Comic Fan with Ron, and we
Right,
did an episode about Peter David. And I
right,
wanted the only thing of his I've read in its entirety is his Young Justice.
right.
I've read a
Okay,
little bit of
cool.
his Hulk, a little bit of X Factor, a little bit of his. I liked his Supergirl. It was
Right.
weird.
Yeah, I read some of the Supergirl. I read loads of the Hulk. I was reading it when he started on it. When I was a
I
kid
want
when
to
he
read
started
that
on it.
run. I really want to read that run.
It's a lot of it's really some brilliant stuff in that I've not read for a long time, but I read it a million times in 1986 and 1987, so I remember it very well.
Yeah, I
um,
was a Mantlo guy, and then
sure.
but I Peter David's never written a bad. I don't think he's ever written a bad run.
I would agree
And
with
then he
that.
does
Yeah.
long runs. He's like Wade. I think I kind of put him and Wade on a
Yeah,
level where it's really there's no slipping. They know how to write a comic book, and it may
yeah,
not
and
always be epic like Marvels or something, or deep and thought provoking as like David's X Factor,
yeah,
but
and
then they can do silly.
Peter David wrote a lot of Star Trek novels and stuff as well, didn't he?
That was my first time I ever read
Yeah,
anything of his was a Star Trek novel, and he did a really good
yeah.
job.
He was
Um,
he was a good guy. I don't.
he
I
is a
get.
good. He's
I'm
still,
sure
yeah.
I've heard that he's not having the best of times
No, no, no. He's got health
at the
issues,
minute,
and
unfortunately. But we wish him well, obviously.
yeah, yeah.
But
Because
yeah,
in
this
this
is
country, you don't have insurance, you're screwed. So
yeah. But this is it's been really good sort of rereading these issues. As a crossover, it doesn't outstay its welcome. It does a good job of you know showcasing both lead characters and you don't have they work very well without having to read as you say, without having to read the entire back run of either of them if you didn't read both series.
no, and I think if you were reading just Power Shazam or just Starman, you still understand what happened because they do
Yeah,
enough.
just that. Yeah, just yeah, because especially if you don't read part three, it's if you don't read part three, you kind of go if you read the two Power Shazam issues back to back, it sort of goes from Billy flying up behind Jack and then Jack arriving in Fawcett, and you haven't really missed too much. The story works well enough. All you've really missed is the fight and the Starman specific sort of exposition, flashback dialogue. It does work pretty well. It would have been nice if they'd collected it in a sort of individual separate trade back in the day, but we didn't get that, unfortunately.
Yeah. Well, I like it. It's um, I think it works really well, and I'm glad that they've done such a good job of recent years of getting Starman back out, putting up the
Yeah,
compendium.
yeah,
Johns mentions him in his JSA. I like kind of the thing that and they kind of leave him alone. That
yeah,
he's raising his son,
yeah.
but
I saw something on Facebook that I can't remember what it was. It was probably just some recommended page. The rumors that again are surfacing that James and Tony are going to do something again, and it's going to be apparently. The thing I saw today was saying it's going to be a Black Label
well, that would be
publication.
nice. I know they're doing something for Image or Dark Horse
Oh, really?
Monsters. Yeah, James is
Yes,
writing.
that's right. So that's right. Issue one came out this week. Tony's done one of the covers for it. Yeah, because our pal Alec he was picking it up the other day when we were chatting. That's right. I saw that. I saw that.
Yeah, so I would love to see what's going on with that. That would be nice. That'd be nice. Let it be the samurai sword. That that's what we're all at.
Yeah. Yeah. It's
Or
what yeah.
or just anything. I mean, I'd like to see James write something. I've been reading his Scarlet Witch series he did for Marvel a few years back. It
Right.
was really good.
Okay. Yeah, I
It's
remember
really
hearing
good. Every issue had
such
a
yeah.
different artist. It's another mystery. She's just acting as I'm not a superhero anymore. I don't want to do any of that. I'm not going to go on any team ups. I'm just going to go solve little mysteries. But
Yeah.
there is an issue where Pietro comes up. It's during the first Civil War, and he's trying to recruit her, and they have a fucking argument, as siblings will.
Sure.
And he's being condescending and a misogynist twit to his little sister, and she throws him into a wall. And then there's this, it's great, and it doesn't end well. They don't make up. She's
Right.
like, I don't ever want to see you again. Because
Oh
some of the
well.
problems what made me broken were you.
Sure. Yeah.
And it was kind of cool. It was neat. I didn't know he did it. And I heard
Right.
someone say something nice about his James Robinson's FF run. I don't remember it fondly, but I just only read a few issues of it.
Oh yeah. He put them all in red uniforms, didn't he? That's the main thing I
Yeah.
remember. I think I picked a few of them up. Whether or not they're probably been a pile over there.
But I just wish he did some stuff. I haven't read anything by him in a while. And
Yeah, it'd be nice to get him back sort of on something regularly again.
or
We'll
to
have to
take
see.
something and let him play with it. Say you can do whatever you want. I think
Yeah,
this would be a good time for him to go to DC and talk to them
yeah,
because they are
yeah,
really
exactly. Yeah, because look at
they're playing with stuff. They're trying
yeah,
stuff. And I'm very impressed. I'm
look. I
liking
mean,
most of it.
look what they're letting Mark. How much fun they're letting Mark Wade have just now.
Yeah, I'm a little nervous what he does with the history. Not because I don't trust him, because his history of the Marvel universe was freaking amazing.
Yeah, Yeah, that's going to be
But yeah,
interesting.
I want to see how he does continuity, and I want to see what this new. I know we're not going to get to the heroic Legion for a while, but it's coming. Also, I like that they're bringing back Superboy.
Oh, really? I've
Super.
not heard that.
Oh yeah,
No, no,
Superman was
tell-
Superboy. It was in the
right.
summer
Okay.
special.
Okay. Right.
So yeah, there is a Superboy in Smallville in the
Oh, right.
past,
Was that the Superman special that came out for Superman Day the other week? Was it in that?
something like that. Yeah.
Yeah, I've got it. I haven't picked it up yet. I've got it stashed.
But I'm
I
sorry,
was.
I ruined it. But no, but there's a Superboy story. Superboy,
Oh,
there
that's
is a
good to
super.
know.
So here's my thing. I got the Super Sons omnibus because I like Tomasi's stuff, and I read a little bit of it, and I really wanted to read it.
Right.
And I love the Super Sons cartoon. I had kind of avoided it on Max and watched it and went, oh my God, this is really, really, really good. They're funny.
Right.
They're neat. One is a boy. One's like, I'm just becoming Superboy. He didn't know how to do anything superhero like. And Damien's like, why do I have to hang around with this kid? He's so dull. Let's go punch somebody. And they become best friends. There's a spaceship and they have to save their dads. They're going to have to sacrifice themselves. And they're all like, and they learn to be bad. I mean, they become best friends.
Right.
And then King has had him, John and Damien, be kind of like the mentors to Trinity, Diana's
Right.
daughter, which I
Sure.
like a great deal. I
That
like
makes
her.
sense. Yeah.
Yeah. But aging up John took that kidness away from him. I like him as the kid where it looks like his cape is like tied around his neck.
Sure.
And he's
Yeah.
got because I think
Yeah.
Tomasi, the young
Yeah.
John is like with I understand making him old. I don't know. But I
I've
would
seen a
like
couple.
my dream would be that yes, Kal-El was a member of the Legion when he was a kid,
Yeah.
but he also Jonathan eventually becomes a Legionnaire, and they are in missions together when they're both kids at the same
Oh,
time,
yeah. That would be amazing.
wouldn't it? And
Yeah.
Mondale having to deal with it, going, "Oh shit,"
Oh, God, that would be terrific.
wouldn't it? Yeah, see, I think.
Crazy we don't have a Legion book, isn't it? Right
Well,
now.
I think maybe Wade's going to try to fit. I don't know what he's going to do because he said that he's going to say that the new 52 Origin of Justice League is the Origin of Justice League. I don't like that. I'm going to see,
Okay.
but I trust him
Yeah.
because he doesn't normally. I've never hated a Wade book. It may be characters I wasn't as engaged with, but it's been well written. I love what he's doing with World's Finest. I love what he's doing with Justice League Unlimited.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Um,
Yeah. I mean,
his
yeah.
Superman's pretty good.
I'm not reading Superman. I'm reading those other ones. They're about the only things I'm reading at the moment. I'm not enjoying the current Justice Society book very much.
Oh, I hate to
Um,
hear that because I'm really enjoying it.
Pete's enjoying it too. We spotted a sort of. Have you read the latest issue?
No, I haven't. It came out. I'm
Yeah,
gonna
it
get
came
it
out this
Friday.
week. Yeah, right. I shall say no more. But we spotted a goof. See if you spot it. We think it's a goof. It might not be, but we have a little speculation on about it, and either the next episode of Earth-2 or the one after that. So
Okay.
we go contemporary just for a moment, just to kind of, because we were both like, hang on a minute, because I'd flicked through it because it came in his delivery on Monday, and Pete was reading it on his lunch, and I was upstairs working, and he messaged me and said, I said, I spotted something, JSA, see if you spot it too. And he said, right, I've just finished it. What was the thing you spotted? And I said, and he went, oh, and I went, yeah. And then we had a conversation about it, and then we had a bit of a chat on. So try and read it before Thursday,
Well,
just in case.
I'll
Or
just won't
maybe,
listen until Friday because I get paid
yeah,
on Friday and then we go by the comic shop. And
okay,
last payday was New Comic Day. I mean,
right,
free comic day, and I bought a little too much.
sure.
So,
Yeah,
but
it's
all
funny,
right.
man. Like working in a comic shop now. I'm buying. It's variant covers, man. It's variant. I'm just seeing variant covers and going, oh, because
Uh,
Jerry Ordway did a Godzilla, a Spider-Man Godzilla variant, which was a homage to one issue of the old '70s series, and it's just, it's gorgeous. And
oh,
I keep
really? The
seeing,
old Deep Marvel 70 series?
yeah. I'll post them side by side on my Instagram at some point fairly soon. Um, the but that's the worst of it. Working in a because stuff comes in or you're sorting through boxes and you find, oh right, there's those 2 issues of solo Avengers that I need, or there's a nice bunch. There's some nice variant covers of comics that I don't read, but the covers are I can't turn down a pretty variant cover.
I'm that way with the JSA ones because I got all the Tony ones, and then I got the
Yeah,
1 and 2 of the new series by Jeff Lemire because I do like his art.
yeah.
And
I've started.
I would like him to do if he's going to do Golden Age flashbacks. I would like him to draw it.
Yeah, it'd be nice. Yeah, because I think the next issue is a Golden Age flashback.
And he
The
said he was
latest.
going to do that. That the first arc is going to take the first year,
Yeah,
but he's going to have like those flashback episode issues every
things
so
past sort of
often,
things.
so to
Yeah.
give context
Yeah,
to what's going on.
the latest issue, one of the variant covers is Todd Knock drawing, or Nauk, how you pronounce it, drawing Rick Tyler Hourman, and it's phenomenal. I love
Yeah.
Todd. Todd's become one of my favorite artists. Because he's done these kind of spotlight variants for Marvel recently, and I've picked up the Hulk one recently, but he's done this brilliant cover. He's done a few actually really nice JSA variant covers recently. So because obviously he worked on the Courtney series a year or two ago, so it's nice to see him still hanging around. Anyway,
Yes. So David, tell everybody where they can hear you. I know they all
yes,
know.
I'm a regular. I'm on the Earth-2 podcast every week with my good friend and colleague, Mr. Peter Watson. We're nearly at the end of 1975. We had quite a few side steps at the start of this year, because we did some Fantastic Four issues, and we spent a month on GS April, but we're now getting back to the plot. I'm also a regular contributor to, if you're a Doctor Who fan, as well as checking out Gallifrey's Most Wanted. You should be occasionally, if you don't mind, checking out The Power of Three. My good friend Kenny Smith is involved with that. He gets some brilliant guests on, and we do sort of chat about episodes. But Kenny's infinite address book, he gets a lot of authors and people involved in merch and stuff, and creatives on to kind of talk about what they've done. And I'll make a mention as well because at this time of year, and he's helped us out on the Earth-2 podcast. Brandon Peters is doing his latest Summer of retrospective. And he's voiced Superman and some other people for us in the Earth-2 podcast. So we've got to give Brandon a mention. This year they're looking at 2015. So check out the Brandon Peters show if you haven't done already.
All right. Well, folks, thanks as always. There'll be more Starman coming up. David will be back because we got a Times Pass coming up.
Yeah,
I'm going to do some Will Payton episodes coming up, and
good.
there's going to be a summer surprise. It's a project that's going. We're going to have a special episode as we get closer, and David is helping, and Kirby's helping, and I think it's going to be a lot of fun. But folks, as always, please be safe.